Now you're live. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the Schomburg Library. My name is Chris. I'm your Adult Programs Coordinator here at the library, and I'm so excited to once again be partnering with the League of Women Voters of the Palatine, Barrington, and Schaumburg areas to bring you another session in our Civic Awareness series. Tonight's topic is artificial intelligence and its effects on politics. Before I introduce our speaker, just a few friendly reminders for our in-person and our virtual audience at home. For our in-person audience, if you have any questions for Roman, if you just want to throw them, there's some lovely index cards. If you throw your hand in the air, if you'd like one and a pen and you don't have one of our League of Women Voters friends will bring you one. When you have your question written down, you can throw your card back up. The League will collect them, and then we'll facilitate a Q&A at the end for you guys as well as our online audience. Our online audience, you obviously don't get note cards, but you do have Zoom. And if you look at your toolbar, you'll see a Q&A option. If you click on that, you can submit questions that way, and the League will make sure to field some questions via the Q&A from online as well. For our online audience, you will notice that closed captions have been enabled for your convenience. You can turn those on or off as you would like. I went out of order of how I normally do this, so now my brain is confused as to what I have and haven't said. I think that's everything for online. I'll come back if I forgot something. For our in-person audience, if you need a restroom during tonight's presentation, the restrooms are located right out this door here. Ladies is immediately on the left, gentlemen's is a little bit further down the wall, and there's a water fountain in between. All three of these doors are unlocked on both sides for easy access if you need them. If you could also take this moment to silence all cell phones and any other electronic device that may make noise during the presentation, as sounds and lights emitted by those devices are distracting to your fellow patrons as well as the speaker. One last thing before I introduce our speaker this evening. If you are enjoying the Civic Awareness series, or if this is your first time to the Civic Awareness series and you're like, wait, Chris, this is a series? Yes, it is. The fourth Tuesday of the month, the League of Women Voters and I partner to bring educational opportunities to keep you civically engaged. Our next two sessions for the summer, the first one will be on June 24th, and that's going to be about how and why to get involved in local politics. We're going to have a panel of different people who are engaged. Well, we have a library board director, we have our president, we have a former president of a school board, and a couple others. That's going to be a conversation facilitated by the League of Women Voters, so make sure you come out for that. It will be offered, just as always, virtual and in person. You can sign up for that now at schomburglibrary.org/events. And then our July session is going to be with Professor Stephen Schwinn from the University of Chicago. He'll be talking about the power balances of our federal branches. Once again, that'll be hybrid, in-person, and virtual, and that'll be held on July 22nd, both sessions from 7 to 8 p.m. So we hope to see you there. Those are both live and ready for you to register for. Without further ado, I've taken up quite enough of your time tonight. I'm going to introduce tonight's speaker, Roman Eng. Roman is a cybersecurity and artificial intelligence advisor dedicated to advancing technological innovation for the public good. He serves as cybersecurity compliance director at a Fortune 500 company in the Chicagoland area, where he heads initiatives to strengthen digital trust and resilience. A passionate advocate for community education, Roman works to bridge the gap between complex technology and everyday understanding. He is currently a third-year PhD student in computer science at Clarkson University with a research focus on personalizing conversational AI agents. His work centers around enhancing the safety and trustworthiness of AI systems to preserve human well-being in an era of AI coexistence. Ladies and gentlemen, Roman Eng.
Thank you, Chris. I actually do want to thank the Schomburg Library. I'm actually a local product, so I live in Roselle, so I pay Schomburg taxes. So, but I have a great presentation for you. It's a very interesting topic, intelligence and its effects on politics. I'm going to stay away from the politics and talk more about the innovation. So as Chris mentioned, I am a very passionate and advocate for safety. I've been in the cybersecurity space. I'm a cybersecurity compliance director, and I love what I do. The other passion is really the educating and the awareness. And the one thing that's really special about engagements like this is that we can turn off our cell phones, we can turn off our computers, and AI will not impact us. So I have 3 areas that I want to touch on. I'm going to talk about intelligence and what that really means. We'll go into situational awareness. I'll talk about the trends and what to look out for. And the third big area is really the politics, the regulations, and the safety aspects. So intelligence. We know that technology is deeply integrated into our lives. We actually sit here and we are connected. We are connected to our friends, we are connected to our families, and we are connected to the internet at our fingertips. I want to touch on, I put this slide up and I included this because social networking and social relationships are going to be even more paramount. The large labs are doubling down on investing into these social media applications. So I want to actually plant that seed in your head, because we're going to see more of this. So when we talk about intelligence, we have to talk about the human brain. It's actually fascinating, just kind of digging into the details of the brain. As you can see, most of it is water. It matures at the age of 25. But what's really interesting is that, look at the power consumption. 20 watts, approximately 20 watts. That's equivalent to like an LED light bulb. So we are very efficient when it comes to intelligence. The other fascinating thing is that it's still a black box. With all the research that we've done throughout the centuries, throughout the decades, we actually still don't know how the brain works. One of my favorite authors, Daniel Kahneman, kind of breaks down how we think. It's the system 1 and the system 2. And to plainly describe it, system 1 is really the reactionary. We don't even have to think, and it automatically, we are automatically able to think of that thing. System 2 is more of the critical thinking. It's more of the complex problem solving, and we do take a little more time into utilizing our analytic and cognitive skills. So humans, we actually use our intelligence to create tools. We are really fascinated with creating tools that look like us. And the question you may have is, why is that? The reason why is that because there's utility. All of the things that we use, our homes, our cars, they're made to fit us. So that is why, as researchers, as scientists, we aim to actually create things and tools that have utility to help us. So I put up this image because this is, and I'm not sure if anybody knows, but this is actually a meme. It's actually a metaphor. It's called a Shoggoth monster. And it's a meme to actually describe a large language model, because it's actually a monster that has a pretty face, but has a really scary back end that we should fear. We don't understand how it works, and we don't understand where it came from. This is the technical part a little bit about it's a little late in the evening. So large language models are really finicky because we actually don't know, as a research scientist, we don't know how they work. And if you see the sentence, you actually know how to complete the sentence. What we do with these neural networks is that we actually train these neural networks to actually predict the next word. And this is basically called natural language processing, and it's based on probabilities. If I wanted to be creative, I can actually tell the model to say, hey, I want you to be creative in this generation of text, and Mary could had a little red balloon, could be one of the responses. So this is where things get really interesting, because if we're basing this on probabilities, there could be a chance that the next time you interact and pose the same question to the large language model, it can give you a different answer. So how are we doing this? We're actually very fascinated as mathematicians to actually model the world. We actually use algorithms. And the few things that was the unlock a few years ago was really the communications and the understanding. And that's the natural language processing. What we have today is we have the communications and understanding through different modes. So it could be text, it could be words, it could be images, audio, and video. There's a lot of organizations that are putting in a lot of effort into robotics. They want to embody the AI. And the last thing that you'll hear a lot about in the next few years are these AI agents. So we'll actually dig a little bit more into that, but it's really to help us take action for the digital things that we do, and also help us in the decision making. Oh, sorry. Going the wrong way. I think the button got stuck. Okay, we're getting back. Okay. Okay, so the question is, what is in Pandora's box? Because we have a simple function that models a problem. We have some input, which is X, and we get an output, which is the generation. So the question is, what is in Pandora's box? It's a Shoggoth monster. And the Shoggoth monster looks friendly when you actually have a conversation with it, when you talk to it. It seems pretty helpful. There have been some recent studies to say that they are deceptive, and they only tell us what we want to hear. But they are very intelligent to a point where there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of understanding how they think and how they come up with these generations. So these creations that we're putting together, they're actually smarter than the average human now. The average IQ is between 90 and 100. I just pulled these stats last night, and OpenAI has a model that basically averaged 134 IQ on the Mensa test. So what is the mission statement? Where are we going with all of this? Within the next decade, we're definitely going to move away from this narrow artificial intelligence, and we're going to move into artificial general intelligence. A model that's able to solve most general problems. And then what's the next step? The next step is artificial superintelligence, which is basically a model that is able to surpass all human intelligence in all domains and everything that we do. So from the experts, what's the timeline for AGI? That is the prediction. So it's within our lifetime. This is something that I actually love movies. This is actually from Limitless. And what we have today is we have intelligence on demand. And what that means is that through our devices, through our computers, through our mobile phones, we have access to intelligence anywhere we go. And here's a fun depiction of how that looks from 2011. Chris, is there sound?
Should be.
Oh.
Oh, there it is.
I need you to go in the back and take one of the pills. Because you'll know what you'll take it and then you'll know.
I can't think of my way out at night.
Just listen to me. It'll come on in 30 seconds. And you'll think your way out. That's what it does. Put it down.
So,
Sacrifice the kid?
so we won't be taking a pill, but we will be taking out our devices, our cell phones. And just imagine, let's say hypothetically, you get stuck on the road. You need to change a tire. You have a car that you have to figure out where the jack is and how to use a jack. You can actually pull your phone out and have a conversation. Well, that was the old way of doing it. Now you could actually have a conversation and interact with it. And what's really fascinating is that it's available today. So last week, I think it was last week, at the Google I/O conference, they introduced Gemini Live, and it's free to everyone. You can actually download it to your Android phone, your Mac OS, and you can actually have this experience. And I've played with it, and it's amazing. It surprises you. So situational awareness. Where are we today? What are the trends? Well, we know there's a lot of headlines. There's a lot of fear. We have copyright issues because we know that these AI models are data hungry. But we also have the humans that are going to be impacted. I'm actually a woodworker. So I have to think to myself, okay, I love to create. Is AI, how is AI going to impact me? So those are questions that remain open. There's a lot of fear and there's a lot of phobia, of course. There's a lot of talk out there in terms of the uncertainty. And to be honest, any research scientist that tells you that they know where this is going, they're full of it. So I'm going to talk. I could have an entire segment on each one of these, but I basically just cherry-picked 4 things that I wanted to talk about and to raise to your attention. The first thing is the AI arms race. That has been all over the news. That's going to be very impactful. Number 2 is AI agents. There's going to be a lot of talk about AI agents and how to use them. Number 3 is very interesting. I'm sure you guys remember the first Windows operating system, Windows 1. It was introduced in 1985. So I'm actually going to talk a little bit about how that interface will be changing and how it's morphing. And lastly, I'm going to talk about some real advancements in coding as well as mathematics within the last 6 months. So the AI arms race, it's basically a 2-horse race. The question is, who has the edge? We know that to create a large language model, you need compute, you need data, and you need the algorithms that we talked about. So from a computing perspective, we have export laws. We have export laws that restrict the most powerful GPUs to certain countries. And that is helping. In terms of data, that is very, very complicated because if you talk about data privacy here, it's a tough balance because organizations and technology companies, they need your data to give you a better user experience. But then there's a certain level of privacy as well, because we know that companies, although they do their best, they sometimes lose your data to hackers and to breaches. In China, we know that, I actually know less about their government, but we've heard stories about how they surveil their people. They collect their data without their permission, most likely, but don't quote me on that. So we're kind of even there. The algorithms is where, within the past year, China has really caught up. So the question is, who is winning the race? If you take a look at the number of research scientists, computer science is not the most popular domain here in the US. In China, they have a lot more research scientists, so we have to work extra hard. In terms of open source models, And when I say open source, I mean open weights. These are models that are fully transparent. You actually know how they're created. And they're out there, hundreds of thousands of them. So you can actually go home today and download a large language model to your computer and use it. China actually released DeepSeek, which was an eye-opener, because they actually made some advancements in algorithmic discovery that really changed the trajectory of where we are in terms of competition against them. And then lastly, it's the AI chips. We know that they are heavily investing into these AI factories. If you take a look at the performance, it's a little scary because that score, in terms of the performance, it's knowing. So what have we done? There are a lot of proposals on the table in terms of investing into infrastructure. This was released the end of last year, and it was basically a proposal to invest billions of dollars into data centers. We're building these 5 gigawatt data centers, and I'll come to let you know what a gigawatt is. But these are massive. The most recent one that's in the news a lot is the one in Texas that's being built. We all remember Back to the Future. Marty McFly needed 1.21 gigawatts to actually get himself home. The question is, what is a gigawatt? So a gigawatt can actually power the city of Miami. 5 gigawatts can actually power the state of New York on a cool summer day. So we're talking about a lot of electricity that's being invested to create artificial intelligence. So the next topic I want to talk about is AI agents, just to give you a flash, and won't go too much into this other than you will hear a lot about the different stages of these AI agents. So we're somewhere between 2 and 4 at the moment. We know that they're getting really good at reasoning. These AI agents are starting to take action within our digital workspace. So you're going to start seeing these AI agents incorporated within Windows, within your Mac operating systems. Level 4 is very interesting. So there's talk saying that there are limitations with AI, that they're not creative, that they cannot create anything that's novel. There's a lot of research that's being put into that, and the day that happens, it's going to be that pivot to super intelligence. If you want to take notes, there's this paper that came out called Alpha Evolve. It's actually a breakthrough in algorithmic discovery by Google. It's basically self-learning. It's a self-learning algorithm, and it is a breakthrough. And we will start seeing some applications out there in the field. So we have a set of questions. This is the first question. What is the next big thing in AI that could impact? What should we expect to see in the next 5 years? We're going to meet our new AI coworkers. We're going to have you be augmented by an agent, an assistant, and it's going to make you better. You're going to have these virtual coworkers that are going to do these mundane tasks. You're going to have these other AI agents that are going to be collecting data, scraping data, and they're just your little worker bees in the background. You will have virtual researchers. How much time have we spent over the last 10 years going through Google search, searching for something that we want to find, and spending hours and hours? You can actually log into a conversational AI today and ask it to perform a task, a research task, and it will scour over 100 websites for you and summarize the findings for you. You could do that today. So we talked about Windows 1. If you guys remember, it's Windows 3, Windows 98. So we have this phenomenon that's occurring where, do we even need a Windows operating system anymore? When you could just talk to an agent, an assistant, and it will go and capture and collect the information for you. The question is, do we need Excel? Do we need Word? Because you can actually instruct AI to actually create a document for you. So I actually put this together today, actually, and they're basically 3 categories. Where we have assistants, and these are actual vendors and platforms that you can use today. Gemini Live, which I've talked about. You have Microsoft and its entire Office suite, and it's powered by Copilot. You have OpenAI that's creating their platform. And you also have Claude, which is another company that I want you guys to really pay attention to. Because in my opinion, they're really leading the way for safety research and for safer models. In terms of research and discovery and knowledge discovery, the way that we use Google search is going to be in the past. What we're going to have is, we're going to have these AI agents that are going to be embellishing and enhancing the searches for you. They're going to be performing the searches for you. And what's really fascinating is the AI industry hasn't figured out how to market to you. So we actually don't see any ads yet, but that probably will be coming.
We can't ask its own agent on how to market.
I think it will be coming if you're in the marketing space. And then lastly, we're going to see these smart devices. The AI glasses, if you are cutting edge, you can pick up a pair of Ray-Bans from Meta. And then Apple, and there's actually a number of just these VR glasses that will eventually one day eliminate the monitor, because you can put these glasses on and it projects this very large augmented screen. So I want to talk about our fourth and last topic. So about 3 years ago, when AI first came out, one of the biggest complaints was that it was horrible in math. It couldn't even perform a 2 + 2, consistently. Well, that has changed this year. So they're actually measuring with benchmarks against the best mathematicians in the world. And they are able to solve these very complex problems. They're basically sample problems that if you are a mathematician and the best in your area, it may take you hours or days to solve these problems. Artificial intelligence can actually solve it 25% of the time now. And that number is growing. So what happens when they are able to solve all of these complex mathematical problems? It's going to be a very interesting day. And then, how many people in the audience are either developers or know of any developers? Well, there's a lot of advancements in coding. It's to a point where, is it valuable to even invest your time into learning how to code? So that is a debate that we can have a long discussion on. If you are not a developer, you can actually vibe code. Vibe coding is a meme that just came out this year, I think it was this year, where if you have an idea of an application that you want to build, you can actually utilize one of these AI platforms and build it for you without knowing how to code. So the real breakthrough within the past month was, look at the AI agent, the coding agent. It was able to code for 7 hours straight on a single problem that it was given. So you kind of imagine that if it's able to code and take instruction over a long time horizon, in a sense, can we replace a developer? Because these AIs aren't going to take holidays, they're not going to have to eat or take a break. They'll just take your instruction and code. Okay. I'm not sure if you want to take a few minutes. Are there any questions in the audience?
If you have questions, just make sure we get them to Marianne over here so that the online audience, can hear them.
Okay, one of the questions from Zoom is, what are the thoughts on AI's impact to independent thinking? Oops, it's disappeared.
Yeah, that's...
Okay. On AI's thinking, in today's state, there are numerous large language modules, LLMs, from various stakeholders. If these stakeholders consolidate, how would that impact the diversity seen within the LLMs and internet today?
Yeah. So when it comes to thinking, the one thing that AI won't be able to take away is our agency. I always kid saying that we are in the matrix. We form our own perspective of the world, our lives, and have opinion on things. And that is what AI will not be able to take away from us. AI, if you think about AI, it's basically the average of all things that are possible. And the reason why I say that is that because we know since we were kids, that Mary had a little lamb. On an average, that's going to be the answer. And what's really fascinating is when you train a large language model, there are lots of dimensions. These different probabilities of possible outcomes, in a sense. And if you think about that, that problem space is huge.
This is what we gave him.
So
These are the questions we
the one thing that
would give him.
AI cannot do is that it's not going to actually know what path to take, what you're trying to eventually ideate, or what your goals are. And that's why I feel that we're still going to have our independent thinking, and AI will most likely have its own, but we actually don't have to care for what it outputs.
Okay, next question I have is, does it using AI as an interface only ensure that we are dependent on companies for our devices to work? Why should we trust a corporation to be a gateway to all our current and common knowledge?
Yeah, that's actually the fear, the centralization of power. So if you think about history, there's no winner takes all. If you think about like our choice of operating systems, we could go Windows, we could go Mac, we can go Linux in a sense. We have choices. There's no one centralized operating system that we all have to buy into. For the AI space, you do have these large labs and these large platform companies like Microsoft, Meta, and if you want to participate in their ecosystem, you can, because they may have something of value that you want to participate in. But there's an open source community that is actually trying to democratize AI for all. And open source is not controlled by one entity. It's actually software for the people.
Next question, are the data centers the huge warehouses-like buildings that require thousands of gallons of water to run? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Last question, and then we'll head back.
Okay. Which natural minerals will be needed for the advancement?
Yeah. So as you know, our current administration is really into deal making to look for minerals. We don't have the natural resources here, unfortunately. That's why a lot of the manufacturing plants, the techniques that are used, the supply chain for AI chips, it's outsourced. To bring them here, it's going to be tough, and we do need alliances in the supply chain. I actually do not know exactly what resources specifically, but it is definitely mineral rich that we need the silicon and other elements to actually build these chips. So are we ready to jump into the last section? Okay. I actually love this quote from Ronald Reagan. The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Okay. So, regulations has been a tough conversation in the AI space. We know that from a compliance perspective, usually it's California or New York are the frontiers and the progressive states that typically put out the laws. SB 1047 was a law that was shot down because if you take a look at the scope, it was really about basically safety testing. And also, it had a few flaws because what's really hard in AI is to actually measure the performance of artificial intelligence. And this bill was really hard set on, just limiting, hey, if you have like the model training cost be X and the performance that you need to actually train these models be Y, that's not a good measure of how powerful and how risky these models were. So a lot of industry, just researchers and advisors, they advised against this. The EU. So the EU they've been very good and diligent in protecting data privacy. We know that through GDPR. They actually do a very good job in defining and protecting individuals' rights for data privacy. The EU Act was actually passed. And it was actually one of the first big regulations that impacted the world. But there are some concerns with regulations. And it's a huge debate because, we have to think back to the AI wars. The question is, will it stifle innovation if we over-regulate? How are we going to enforce? There are not enough experts in the AI field to actually understand the thing that we just created that we don't understand. And then there's the question of the surveillance and how we use AI. We have a lot of these overarching questions that have really slowed down the talk of regulations. But what has passed, and this is new, this is called the Take It Down Act. This just passed, like within a week ago. And this is just to protect individuals from digital exploitation, teens as well as adults, saying that there's an image or a deep fake on an online platform, they have to remove it from the platform. So this is law now. The interesting entity that's enforcing this is actually the FTC. So this is a very interesting question that was posed. How can AI be regulated without infringing on free speech? Wow. Well, we have some core challenges. We know that artificial intelligence, it's used for communications. Just like an individual that wants to voice their opinion. But AI, though, is seen as a tool. And the law for free speech governs individuals and is not recognized and does not recognize the AI itself. So when it comes to the First Amendment and free speech, all the communications and all the things that AI can do actually falls within the context of free speech. The one thing that it will cover, and this is the intersection, is that you cannot use AI to actually incite violence, make any threats, or do any criminal activities. So that is one thing that you cannot use AI for. We have some other questions. What responsibilities do companies have to regulate AI and fake news, deep fakes? And what are the checks and balances that are needed to help the public if they see the pictures of the deep fakes and the videos that are generated by AI? Well, the early part of my research, I was really deep into responsible AI. And there are a number of things that we can do, but it's basically very complex and it takes time. One of the really big things is transparency. And to basically label the digital content, bless you, that it is AI generated. So what we have today is we really have the emergence of these watermarking techniques. And I'll actually show some examples in the subsequent slides. But it's really going to be your applications. You're going to have a browser that's going to have a utility that's going to be able to tell you if it is AI generated and if it is a deep fake. The fact of the matter is that over 90%, 90+% of all content on the internet will be AI generated. So what's really important, and you see some of the content generators or creators do this now, they actually disclose that their article, their blog was written by AI, or this image was generated by AI. So it's actually going to be public notification in a sense that they do this. The second piece is really interesting. I've done a lot of harms work. There has to be some accountability for harm. If you are generating some content that instigates, that initiates harm, there has to be some liability. What we can do on the beneficial end is that for all AIs, there may be like an FTC type of label. If you use this application, these are the possible harms. So you have these model cards, you have these sites that you can actually go to actually report the incidents. So sort of like an authority. And then if you are a builder, if you're creating these applications, there are talks about these regulatory sandboxes, which you can actually have them assess the application that you build. The third part is really about the transparency. These mathematical algorithms, in a sense. This is the space that I really avoided in my research because it required heavy math. Because to actually describe a mathematical algorithm, you have to create a mathematical algorithm to describe it. But it's really part of the explainable AI. There are these emerging services from a third party to actually audit. So like in the compliance space, we're going to have like these entities that come in, they audit the systems and these applications. So this is by Google, and this is an example of a watermarked image. To the human eye, you can't tell, but embedded within the code and the pixels, it's actually watermarked. The question is where, and you have to use basically a program to understand where. But these are the techniques to actually watermark and to actually identify these AI-generated content. So this is a big one. Do you think that AI could help with voter registration by using biometrics? So I remember when fingerprinting and facial recognition was first introduced, everybody was up in arms, like, oh my gosh, it's like, I don't want to send my fingerprints up to some unknown system. But now, we're quite comfortable with them. I think it will take time. And the question is, could this make things more secure? Well, technology at the ballot box is very complicated because the elections are managed at the state level. So we actually don't have consensus in terms of how we register voters. Now, I'm not an expert in this area, but what I do know is that if we do explore biometrics, it could be very beneficial. We know that there's a lot of human error, of course. There's a lot of people that it's all about access. So if you are able to utilize a device to actually register to vote or an application from your own homes, that could be very beneficial. But here are some of the consumer concerns and the other side. We do have some privacy concerns, of course. There are still some bias and some fairness issues that we're still working through. And the question is the trust and legality of doing all of this. Can we find consensus across all 50 states? We kind of know the answer. But I want to share with you just some interesting organizations that are putting together some technology. So this is basically an orb that uses blockchain to prove that you are a human on the internet. It's basically by a company that's backed by Sam Altman from OpenAI. So this could be one of the answers of how we can do this, because I kind of feel that with the AI agents being our coworkers, and I hope there won't be a day where somebody raises the question of, should this AI agent have rights like the rest of us? So I think this could be a pathway to proving that we're human and identifying ourselves. So this is a question. This is more of like my personal opinion. When it comes to misinformation and disinformation that's out there, and there's a lot of it. And the question is, what if there's increased federal funding? Can that help? Exactly. Well, we actually live in a world of duality. Just like all the states, in terms of managing elections, it's hard to find consensus sometimes because we all have our opinions. Here you have good and evil, you have love and hate, There's always two sides. But when we talk about misinformation and disinformation, we have to separate out the misinformation, because misinformation is really you're just misinformed. I remember back in the early days when there was no internet, if I had a question and I needed some facts, I'll ask 3 friends. How trustworthy was the information that I got back? It was really subjective, but it was no fault of them. But if it's information with the intention to harm, that is what we're interested in. So this is just my personal perspective. And my personal perspective is that we will eventually have to self-regulate. And I know you guys are thinking, okay, how long is that going to take? But it really boils down to, our society's ethics and the morality. And the signs of success that I'm going to see is that we're going to have the right regulations to actually figure out the deepfake. The take it down is a good first step to protecting us. We all have to have these AI tools to help us to help us detect and to be our defenses. So being in the technology space, I remember decades ago, Cisco Systems, if you guys are familiar with them, they're into networking. They came out with an article that said, machine versus machine. And I remembered that, and I'm remembering that to this day, because in our media future, it's truly going to be AI versus AI. We are going to have AI assistants that are going to protect us. And that is what we need. But then we all have to, the last bullet point is really about society just self-regulating. And what I mean by that is, if you take a look at, let's say, the medical practices, it took us centuries to actually regulate to the point where you didn't have these crackpot surgeons and these hawker stands, in a sense, with these potions to actually serve you to actually serve up as medication. So it's going to take time for us to understand how this technology works, and for us to be able to detect this disinformation. Just like in cybersecurity. So this is my last video. I wanted to show you the power of how far we've come in terms of generating AI content. And then after this video, we're going to take questions. So this was generated by Google VO3. It's basically, you give it some text, you describe the video that you want to generate, and it generates it. But this is all AI.
Everything for my depression. Nothing worked. Then I tried peppermint.
Our prescription helps your body secrete a special pheromone that attracts puppies.
I took it for bed, and when I woke up, there he was, the love of my life.
The pill does not target depression directly, but we found that it's really difficult to be depressed when cute dogs show up on your doorstep. I used to feel so empty, but now I feel joy. and mild concern how a pea stain got on the ceiling. Listen, twice as good as my ex-husband, and only climbs into the lap of half as many of my friends.
He chewed up my Bible and pooped in my good chair. But I'm happy for the first time in years.
It's like a rat, barks like a demon. But he saved my life.
I named him Earl. He follows me everywhere and farts in his sleep. Just like my first husband.
So this was an AI creator that had a very creative idea. And a sense of humor. Thank you, guys.
Okay, I just have one last question. Okay. There was just one last question, and it was the fact, what would I have my child graduate from high school, what to go into college? And if they're in college, what should they pursue?
Yeah. So humans will still have, we still have our favorite domains, our skills that we love.
No, something.
We will always have that. And the skill that you must develop, that the younger generation have to develop, is how to use AI.
He's cutting us.
Because if you think about the efficiency, the power it has to actually enhance what you do, your craft, that is the skill that you need. So I encourage everybody today to actually embrace the technology and learn how to use it.
The League of Women Voters would like to thank both Robert Eng, okay, and also the Village of Schaumburg Library for hosting this event tonight. And if you have any questions, if you can hang around for a few more minutes, we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.